Don't ever forget to laugh. And the most important thing we have is each other. The most important thing we have is each other. Always remember that. So I will speak for about 15 minutes. First they came for the terrorists, but I wasn't a terrorist, so I stayed silent and I went about my business. Then they came for those suspected of terrorism, but I certainly wasn't a suspect, so I stayed silent and went about my business. Then they came for those who defended those who were suspected of terrorism, but I wasn't defending such people, so I stayed silent and went about my business. And then one day, they came and began to suspect me. So I stayed very, very silent and went about my business. And that is how I lost my soul. You can feel it in the air. Many of us are living in the fear that we are one bad event away from this administration seizing power over the people in such a way that we will find ourselves swept up in a nightmare of tyranny such as we have never experienced before, nor have our grandparents or their grandparents. Others before us have also lived in such times. Others before us have also witnessed the tyranny of empire, the fear that it unleashes, the trance that it imposes upon its population. There's a story in the Gospel of Mark. Now don't worry, this is only going to be a couple sentences. This Sunday, I'll be preaching about this story, though. Hence, the story in the Gospel of Mark has Jesus encountering a man in a graveyard, and he's chained to these tombs, and he's possessed by a powerful demon that has caused the man to become violent and insane and out of control and kicked out of the community. And the name of the demon is Legion. And Legion, of course, is a military term that symbolizes the occupying army of Rome. In the story, Jesus breaks through the silence, the denial, the trance, and compels the demon to acknowledge its name, its identity, its essence. Once named, Jesus exorcises the demon. That is, he performs a direct public action that breaks through the denial and the trance while restoring the man to his sanity and to the community. We are gathered tonight because our nation has fallen into, I think, a trance. We've become possessed, and I just want to pause just for a second. Those of us who live in Seattle, we live in an unbelievable bubble compared to the suburbs or those on the east side of the state or those across the heartland in America. We simply live in a bubble in this city in so many ways in what we talk about and what we think about. But I think that our people have become possessed by a spirit that is causing us all great harm. It is a spirit that causes great violence, a spirit that destroys community. It turns us against each other. It causes us to distrust each other. It certainly causes many of us to question our own sanity, our understanding of events, and of basic human qualities like honesty, forthrightness, integrity, cooperation. This trance has caused us to lose our voice. We have become silent in the face of great evils. We have learned how to live in denial of the obvious. Indeed, we now know the answer to that old question, how could good German citizens allow the Nazi Party to rise to power? We need to somehow awaken from this trance and find our voice. We need to break through the denial and compel the demon that possesses us to state forth its name, to acknowledge its essence. And having done that, then, through direct public actions, we can restore our citizenry to sanity and community. We need to awaken and reclaim our roots as a democracy. That's the assumption of this call to meeting. We face a multitude a whole legion of evils that are silencing us, chaining us to fears and denial, and possessing us with a spirit that is contrary to our nature. You have probably come here because you've seen and experienced this possession. You've become restless and frustrating and casting it out of the body politic. Some of you are here because you think electing Democrats in 2008 will bring a new birth of hope. Some of you do. Some of you are here because you think our governing system has fallen into disrepair and needs a few tweaks and adjustments. Some of you want to fix our broken elections, or you want to stop the impending war in Iran and Syria and Lebanon. Some of you want to get to the bottom of the 9/11 contradictions. Some of you are worried about the house of cards that is our economy. Many of you are greatly concerned about the growing power of the executive and the military. And many of you are worried about the corruption of our political process through corporate money. The urgency of multiple crises, legion, is certainly before our nation this evening. But tonight, the focus is really on one part of the crisis: breaking the trance, breaking through the denial and finding our voice. Not just the voice of Seattle progressives, but the voice of the nation. This year, for the first time since 2001, 9/11 falls on a Tuesday. It's the 6th anniversary. Tonight I want to call us to participate in a creative, direct action goaled towards naming the demon and therefore awakening our people from their trance. Tonight I want to invite us into a citywide series of direct actions that will put thousands of people into the streets to perform what might be called a day of democracy, but what I like to call a public exorcism of the tyranny of fear. Like Jesus, I want to invite us to unchain the possessed and let them go free. Unchain the possessed and help them find their voice. And so let me be specific. Many of us are weary of the staged acts of street theater that have become commonplace here in Seattle. You already know the script. We gather at Westlake in coalitions that represent many different agendas. We then march down to the Fed, all under the guidance and control of our police force. We gather full of sound and fury, full of agitation. We hear, as Fred voiced, a few speeches, and then we go home with little or no impact. I want to call us to something a bit different. The empire has promoted our trance largely through the mechanism of stealing our voice, distorting our voice, controlling our voice, and then silencing our voice through shutting us out of the corporate-run media. So I say we should take our public assembly straight to them. It is in the graveyard of our media outlets where once there was life, but now only death and distortion. I call upon us to gather in groups of tens, of hundreds, of thousands, and on Tuesday, September 11th, the 6th anniversary, I call upon us to engage in multiple direct actions at each of the major corporate media outlets in this city, whether it's the Seattle PI or King 5 or Como or Fox or the Times or etc., etc. So these direct actions will be public exorcisms, acknowledging the name of the demon, the growing tyranny that has been inflicted upon our land. Imagine surrounding the PI or King or Como with pots and pans and circling the building 7 times, and each time mounting a more thunderous roar, "Impeach them all! Impeach them all! Impeach them all!" as you continue to go round and round, and maybe like Jericho, the buildings will tumble.